Turkish friends, welcome to May Wrap Up Part 2. Before wrapping up the books that I read in the second half of May, I want to talk about the monthly statistics for the whole month of May. In May, I read a total of 13 books, and I read 3 books in science fiction genre, 2 books in adventure and general fiction genre, 2 historical fiction books, 2 horror books, 2 fantasy books, 1 thriller and 1 romance. The total number of pages in the books amounted to 4,024 pages, and I read 1 book under 100 pages, 4 books between 100 and 200 pages, 2 books between 200 and 300 pages, 3 books between 300 and 400 pages, 1 book between 400 and 500 pages, 1 book between 500 and 600 pages, and 1 book between 800 and 900 pages. The average number per book was 309.54 pages. As for the publishing dates, I read 1 book written in 300s, I read 1 book written in 1910s, 1 book written in 1990s, 3 books written between 2000 and 2010, 3 books again written between 2011 and 2015, and 4 books written between the years of 2016 and 2019. As for the original languages of the books, I read 10 books originally written in English, 2 books written in Turkish, and 1 book written in Italian. As for the format of the books, I read 6 novels, 3 graphic novels, 2 short story or short story collections, 1 book written in verse, and 1 picture book. I read 10 books targeted towards adults, 3 books targeted towards middle grade audience. I read 12 ebooks and 1 paperback. And my ratings really varied a lot. I gave 1 book 5 out of 10, 1 book 6 out of 10, 4 books 7 out of 10, 5 books 8 out of 10, 1 book 9 out of 10, and 1 book 10 out of 10. And my average rating was 7.54. As you can see from the statistics, I had a wonderful reading month in May, and I really liked most of the books that I read and gave them 8, 9 and 10. Previously wrapped up the first 5 books that I read in May in my first part of May Wrap Up. I will link that video down below. In the second half of May, I read a total of 8 books. And the first book that I finished was a Turkish book, a Turkish thriller book. It was called Uçuş 345, which can be translated as Flight 345. It was written by Cenk Kayakuş, a very young Turkish thriller author. Before reading this book, I did not know that it belonged to a series. The protagonist in this series is an art historian and solves cold cases. And in this book, he tried to solve the mysterious crash of Flight 345. The interesting thing about this book was that it was based on a true plane crash, although the other events in this book are pure speculation and fiction. And I actually enjoyed the first half of the book very much. It was very engaging, and when I was reading the book, I thought I think I will continue with this series, and I thought the protagonist could be the Turkish Robert Langdon. In the second half, the book became really brutal and gory. Although I do not mind gory scenes when it's necessary, I found the description of the fight scenes unnecessarily graphic. So I gave the book 7 out of 10. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with the series, but I want to try the first book in the series to decide if I will continue or not. Maybe the other books in the series are not as action-packed as this one and does not have so much overly detailed fight scenes. It is a series that I'm undecided about so far. Second book that I read in the second half of May was a body reading experience, and I body read this book with Emily from Novels, Gaia from Gaia Athena, and Charlie at Charlie Brooks. We body read the last book in his Dark Materials trilogy, The Amber Spyglass. The story of Lyra and his friend Will continues in this third book. I will not give a detailed synopsis in order not to give spoilers. Like all the books in the series, I also gave this book 9 out of 10. But I have to admit I like the second book the most. But it was a solid conclusion to the series. It was actually a bit emotional, but I really enjoyed how it touched my heart. As I've said many times, Philippa Pullman does a really good job of creating a world that is more complex than an average middle grade book, but make the book targeted towards middle grade, and that is a big accomplishment in my opinion. I'm really glad that I read this book, and I'm also especially very glad to read the last 2 books in the trilogy with the wonderful body reading group. I hope to body read more books with them. It was really a fantastic experience. Like most of my body reads, I mean, I'm very lucky to have wonderful body reading friends. And the next book that I finished in May was another series book. Like The Amber Spyglass, this book was also a part of my Stacking the Series challenge. I read Anne's House of Dreams by Montgomery. And aside from being a Stacking the Series challenge book, this book is also a part of Anne Along Read Along, Anne Along 2020, that is hosted by Tia at Tia and All the Books and Amanda from The Curly Reader. In this book, we follow the newly married Anne and her first, I think, 3 years in her marriage, in her House of Dreams. I gave this book 8 out of 10. I enjoyed this book like the other books in the series. Although the first one is a clear favorite of mine, I really enjoyed this one as well, and I categorized this book as an adult book because it covers some hard-hitting subjects as well. It really warms my heart to see Anne grow and become an accomplished young woman, still keep her kindred spirit. And one more thing, I really enjoyed one of the side characters in this book as well, Miss Cornelia. Aside from the side characters in the first book, I think Miss Cornelia will be one of my favorite side characters in the series. I then continued reading another series. I read Locke and Key Volume 3, Crown of Shadows. In this graphic novel, we follow the adventures of Locke children and how they manage with the mansion with many keys. I gave this graphic novel 8 out of 10. Although this installment of the graphic novel series was a slow-paced one, I really enjoyed this one as well because it focused more on the character development. And I think we needed a volume like that in order to warm up with the other characters as well. I then read another Stacking the Series book and finished the series in category 5. I read Laras Oxford by Philippa Pullman. It's a short story that takes place in his Dark Materials universe, and the story takes place after the events of the original trilogy. I'm really amazed at Pullman's writing ability. He created a very decent story in so few pages. It had a clear beginning, a very good developing middle section, and a very good tempo, which led to the ending of the story. The reason I gave it 7 out of 10 was that it was too short. Although I of course connected with Lyra, I knew her from the previous books. It was really hard to connect with the other characters in the short story. And the next book that I read was also a series book. So I think the second half of May is full of series books, it seems like. And that was my aim for the month of May. So I'm really glad that I achieved my goal in this manner as well as reading really good books. I also body read this book with Marissa Curtis. She's one of my dearest friends, and I really like the body reading experience with her. We read The Last Tudor by Philippa Gregory. It tells the story of 3 sisters, Jane Grey, Catherine Grey, and Mary Grey. I gave the book 7 out of 10, which is actually a lower rating than most of the books in the series, because I really struggled with especially with the first point of view, Jane Grey's point of view. I found her to be too saintly and really a character out of this world. I mean, she only thought about her religion and how she was superior because of her religion, and that made her very unsympathetic. And the second protagonist, Catherine Grey, was more likable. As Marissa said in her messages, she portrayed a lot of teenage angst, which is something that I'm not very fond of as well. But I really felt sorry for her. And the saving grace of this book was Mary Grey. She was the most sensible sister in many ways, and she learned a lot from her older sister's experiences. And I really liked her for that matter as well, because she was a learner. If Mary was not present in the book, I would probably given it 5 or 6 out of 10. Although this book was clearly not a favorite of mine, I think I enjoyed the body reading experience more than reading the book. I also hope to read more books with Marissa as well. Second to last book that I finished in the month of May, can you guess? It's another series book. It's the next book in graphic novel series, Locke and Key, Kings to the Kingdom. I also gave this graphic novel 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed the last half of the graphic novel. It was so fast-paced, and I'm really curious to know what would happen in the last 2 volumes. I cannot wait to read the last 2 volumes in June, because the first half of the graphic novel volume was a bit slow-paced. I gave an average of 8 out of 10. The last book that I finished was not part of any series. It was the book that I was supposed to read for my book club. It's a Turkish book written in verse. It's called Ile. Ile can be translated as with or along with. This book was written by Oruç Aruoba. And when I was reading this book, the author actually passed away, and I was really sorry, because although this book was clearly not in my style, I still gave it a 6 out of 10, because I really enjoyed some parts of the book. and I think it was a really good example of its type. So it was really sad to lose an author that I have read for the first time and really enjoyed the writing style. And by the way, the book tells the story of a relationship written in a diary, but most of the diary entries were written in verse. And it had so many internal monologues. I really had hard time classifying the genre of this book, but since it analyzed a fictional relationship, I classified it as a romance book. Hi, it's editor Berna from the future. When I was doing my editing, I realized that I did not include the readathon that I participated in May. I participated in a quarantineathon hosted by April from Getting Hygge with It. And I read one book in every week of May for 4 weeks. And the book that I read for the 3rd week of May was Anne's House of Dreams. The prompt was to read a book about a character that would be still working in this time of pandemic. And the character that I chose in Anne's House of Dreams was Gilbert, and there was a section especially about his medicine profession. So Anne's House of Dreams fitted the prompt perfectly for week 3. And for week 4, I read Laras Oxford. The prompt was to read about something that you really miss. And I was planning to visit United Kingdom actually in these months. Although Laras Oxford takes place in an alternate Oxford, since Oxford is still in UK, I considered that book to be something that I missed, which is traveling and visiting one of my dear friends. So that is all from future Berna. Let's go back to past Berna and see how she wraps up her video. So those were the 8 books that I read in the second half of May. Please comment down below what was your favorite book that you read in the second half of May or in the month of May. It doesn't really matter. If you're a new viewer, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. For Turkish word of the day, since my favorite book in the second half of May was The Amber Spyglass, I thought amber should be the Turkish word of the day. Amber means kehribar in Turkish, and kehribar is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.